Daniel's vision of a ram and a he-goat. The third year of King Belshazzar's reign, I, Daniel, had a vision after the one that had already appeared to me. In my vision, I saw myself in the citadel of Shushan, in the province of Elam. In the vision, I was beside the Ulai canal. I looked up, and there before me was a ram with two horns, standing beside the canal, and the horns were long. One of the horns was longer than the other, but grew up later. I watched the ram as it charged towards the west, and the north, and the south. No animal could stand against him, and no one could rescue from his power. He did as he pleased, and became great. As I was thinking about this, suddenly a goat with a prominent horn between his eyes came from the west, crossing the whole earth without touching the ground. It came towards the two-horned ram. I was still standing beside the canal and charged at him in great rage. I saw him attack the ram furiously, striking the ram and shattering his two horns. The ram was powerless to stand against him. The goat knocked him to the ground and trampled on him, and none could rescue the ram from his power. The goat became very great, but at the height of his power, his last horn was broken off. In his place, four prominent horns grew up towards the four winds of heaven. History has accurately fulfilled this vision of the ram and the he-goat. It is actually the lightning-like conquest of Alexander the Great, who from the west, crossing the whole earth, feet without touching the ground at a very fast speed that is within 10 years only. Alexander the Great's army and navies defeated and brought down the mighty Middle Persian Empire. The prominent horn of the he-goat is Alexander the Great. He broke off the dual monarchy of Media and Persia under Cyrus the Mede and Cyrus the Persian. He started out against Persia at the age of only 22 from Pella, and died in Babylon as emperor of both East and West at the age of 33. Daniel's vision of the four horns and one little horn growing out of the he-goat continues. At the height of his power, the large horn was broken off, and in its place four prominent horns grew up towards the four winds of heaven. And out of one of them came another horn, which started small, but grew in power to the south, to the east, and towards the beautiful land. It grew until it reached the host of the heavens, and it threw some of the starry hosts down to the earth, and trampled on them. It set itself to be as great as the Prince of Hosts, and took away the sacrifice from him. The place of the sanctuary was brought low. Because of rebellion, the host of the saints and the daily sacrifice were given over to the host of the saints, and the daily sacrifice were given over to it. It prospered in everything he did, and truth was thrown to the ground. And as Daniel was watching the vision and trying to understand it, there stood before him one looked like a man. And a man's voice from the Ulai called, "Gabriel, tell this man the meaning of the vision." And the angel Gabriel came near the place where Daniel was standing. And he was terrified and fell prostrate. "Son of man," the angel Gabriel told Daniel, "understand that the vision concerns the time of the end." And he proceeded to tell Daniel the meaning of the vision. The two-horned ram that you saw represents the kings of Media and Persia. The shaggy goat is the king of Greece. The large horn between his eyes is the first king. The four horns that replace the one that was broken off represents four kingdoms that will emerge from his nation, but will not have the same power. In the later part of their reign, when rebels have become completely wicked, the stern-faced king, a master of intrigue, will arise. He will become very strong, but not by his own power. He will cause astounding devastation, and will succeed in whatever he does. He will destroy the mighty men and the holy people. He will cause deceit to prosper, and will consider himself superior. When they feel secure, he will destroy many, and even take a stand against the prince of princes. And yet he will be destroyed, but not by human power. The shocking accuracies of Daniel's prediction about the rise and origin of Russia, or the Soviet Union, and the Antichrist is graphically portrayed by the emergence of the one little horn of Greek origin from the north. I repeat, from the north in the end time. It's very important to notice the time element for correct identification of the little horn. Verse 17 tells us that it is the time of the end, and verse 19, in the later part of the reign, when rebels have finished or completed their wickedness. Verse 26, the distant future, in fact 2,600 years ahead. So the vision is about today and the immediate future, about the rise of the Antichrist that will grow very great towards the east, towards the south, towards the Middle East, towards the Promised Land, towards Jerusalem, even towards the temple, and will fight even against the Prince of Princes, Jesus Christ, and is coming again to rule this earth. But he will be broken without human hand by Christ who is coming to earth. Daniel chapter 8 verse 9 prophesied that out of one of them, that is the four Greek horns or divisions of Alexander the Great's Greek Empire, came out a little horn and grew very great towards the south. The Greek connection, how Russia originates from Greece via the Thrace or ancient name for North Macedonia or Bulgaria in Asia Minor or Turkey. The Antigonic dynasty waged 3 Macedonian wars against Rome, allied with Hannibal of Carthage, North Africa, but lost all 3. Then the Romans invaded Greece, culminating in the Battle of Nicaea, which the Greek Seleucid dynasty lost to the Roman invaders around 190 BC. And due to the expansionist colonial programs of the Roman Empire and the ruthless military who crucified enemies, around 117 AD, the retreating Greeks migrated north. They then settled around the area north of the Black Sea, and the tiny kingdom of Kiev was formed. The capital was later shifted to Moscow. Primary origin of Russia from Greece. Direct genetic link to the Greeks of Alexander the Great's empire. The Greeks who migrated north later intermarried and fused their race with the Slavs, Tatars, and the Rus tribes to become the Russians in around 862 AD. The origin of the Muscovy kingdom was so insignificant and obscure that Russian historians have great difficulty ascertaining its source, whether from the Vikings or the Slavs. Hence the name the Little Horn, out of the Greek Empire. And there is also a secondary origin of Russia to the Greek Byzantium Empire. Indirect genetic link to the Greek Byzantium Empire or the Eastern Roman Empire. Due to the invasion of the Ottoman Turks, Constantinople, its capital, fell in 1453 AD, ending the Roman Empire of the East. But a surviving princess named Sophia Philolog, a niece of the last Greek Byzantium emperor, married Tsar Ivan III of Moscow and thus continue the Greek descent line, Byzantium culture, laws, traditions, even religion, the Greek Orthodox faith and church, until the 1917 Great Communist Revolution. North Russia had its primary origin from Greece, but secondary origin from the Eastern Roman Empire through the Greek Byzantium Empire. The map above shows the growth of Russia from around 1350 to 1600. How Russia started very small, but expanded in the time of the Tsar until 1600. Daniel also prophesied a little horn which grew very great towards the east, or sun rising. The Hebrew word for east, Misrat, literally means sunrise. The map shows how Russia grew from 1600 to 1914 until the Kuril Islands is seized from Japan after Second World War. The prophecy that the little horn, Muscovy or Russia, will grow very great towards the east in territorial expansion has been accurately fulfilled in history, oblivious to all of us.
And the little horn of Greco-Macedonian origin, also known as the Red Beast, grew very great towards the east. In Hebrew, is Misrash or sun rising, or to Japan, the land of the rising sun in the far east.
They are Japan's great lost love. 4 offshore islands seized by the Soviet Union in the dying days of World War II. 60 years on, even the names of the islands inspire torch songs. Every year, thousands come to rallies like this to mourn the anniversary of the Soviet invasion. Japan still calls the islands its northern territories. On a clear day, you can see them from the Japanese province of Hokkaido. They're like a lost world of natural wonder. Undeveloped save for rusting Russian towns that now dot the landscape. And Tokyo has made clear it wants them back.
4島は日本のものであると主権をですね、帰属を
Russian nationalists have made clear they're gone for good.
For me, Russia is this island.
Russia forever.
Russia forever, yeah.
The Northern Territories, known in Russia as the Kuril Islands, start just 7 kilometres off the coast of Japan. But the political gulf is vast and, until now, insurmountable. The dispute has now passed on through 2 generations. 6 decades on, it continues to poison relations between Japan and Russia. For all the obstacles, Japan clings to the hope that Russia will eventually hand back the islands in return for billions of dollars in trade and economic assistance. Recently, President Putin revived an old Soviet offer to return 2 of the islands, one of them uninhabited. But even this gesture outraged Russian nationalists, who form the core of his support base. Cossack leader Yuri Berdyugin heads a large organisation in Sakhalin opposed to ceding any Russian territory.
Скажите, пожалуйста, в какой семье при затруднении финансовых муж жену отдает в публичный дом? Это какая? Хорошая семья будет или плохая? И правильно это или неправильно? Может быть, проще мужу поднапрячься и найти другой способ заработать?
The mayor of Kunashir, Pavel Gomolevsky, says even returning one island would be a national shame.
I won't call this government, Russian government, if this government will give or sell some territory.
Japan insists it will accept nothing less than the return of all the islands.
2島で全て終わりだと、ロシア語で言えば不詳っていうんですか、それで全部終わりだということには日本は絶対に納得しません。これは。
And so the dispute continues to muddle on in this half-forgotten corner of the North Pacific.
A set of islands known as the Kurils in Russia and the Northern Territories in Japan last changed hands at the end of World War II when they were seized by the then Soviet Union. A meeting between Japan's Shinzo Abe and Russia's Vladimir Putin later this week has revived hopes that the deadlock can be broken. The islands lie in Russia's Sakhalin region. That's where Natasha Ganem is reporting from.
Here in the far east of Russia, Japan is closer than Moscow. Russians and Japanese have fished and lived on these islands in the Sakhalin region, but their countries have swapped control of them since 1855.
It's all Russia.
In 1945, in the final days of the Second World War, troops from the Soviet Union took control of 4 sparsely inhabited islands known as the Kuril Islands, creating one of Eastern Asia's longest rifts. As a result, Russia and Japan still haven't signed a peace treaty ending the war. And now, Japan wants the islands back.
To give away land which belongs to Russia after the Second World War would be the betrayal of the heroic deeds of people who fought.
From a military standpoint, the Kuril Islands offers a strategic passageway. Here, the Sea of Okhotsk spills into the Pacific Ocean. The water has plentiful fish and is thought to have reserves of oil and gas.
In the past, Russia offered to return 2 of the smallest Kuril Islands to Japan. But it's not a popular compromise. One recent poll showed that 71% of Russians
Islands, Russia's easternmost territory. They're situated 7,047 kilometers from Moscow, but little more than 20 kilometers off the coast of Japan.
Watchtower 4 calling base.
Base here, go ahead.
Target located. He is heading towards the river mouth. He's not responding to calls. We'll be there in 10 minutes.
Message received.
Unit to arms.
As soon as the alert is sounded, all hands are on deck. Sailing in the sea around the Kuril Islands, even in a small boat without permission from the border guards, is committing a grave offense. There is a long-running dispute over this territory between Japan and Russia. Japan has been demanding that Russia return 4 islands of the Kuril Range. Russia insists that this area belongs to them. The islands were legally transferred to the Soviet Union in the wake of World War II. One of the Pacific's richest waters is nearby. It's something to protect and fight for. Getting to the Kuril Islands is no easy task. The ever-changing weather often delays regular flights. A motor ship is the only reliable means of transportation. It regularly takes people and supplies to the islands. Most passengers carry big bags containing food and other basic necessities. Such items are very expensive on the islands, given that the Kurils are far removed from the mainland. Some of the passengers are locals returning from vacation. Others are fishermen. The design of the ship makes it possible for it to navigate even in the Arctic. Summer temperatures in the Sea of Okhotsk never rise above 8 to 10 degrees Celsius. In winter, ships have to pave their own way through the large ice floes.
Bow engine slow to port.
Bow engine, slow to port.
Stern to aft.
Stern to aft.
Captain Alexander Belyakov first studied maps of this area when he was still a naval cadet. After the collapse of the Soviet Union, he was surprised to find that the Japanese maps of the Kurils differed from the Russian ones.
The Japanese still have their own names for the islands in their nautical charts, but I believe that these are our islands, and they should be called the way we name them.
On May the 9th, people on each of the 3 inhabited islands of the Kuril Ridge, Kunashir, Shikotan, and Iturup, commemorate the fallen of World War II. Following victory over Germany, the first landing parties of the Soviet army arrived on the Kurils in August 1945. Under an agreement with Britain and the United States, the Soviet Union declared war on Japan in exchange for the annexation of those territories. Shortly after Japan's surrender, Soviet army servicemen on the Kurils were joined by new inhabitants of the island. Most of them had come from Siberia. Today there are some 19,000 permanent residents on the islands of the Kuril chain. Many of the spectators and participants in the parade are grandchildren of those first settlers.
In August 2015, Japan protested Russia's decision to send an official into mutually disputed territory, the Kuril Islands. They alleged that Russia must seek permission from Japan to visit the contested islands, while Russia maintains they have no obligation to do so. The two countries have been in dispute over the Kuril Islands since World War II. So why are Russia and Japan still at war? Well, the territory in question is a string of small islands running from northern Japan to eastern Russia. Portions of the islands had been claimed by both countries since the 18th century, but by World War II, Japan was effectively in control of the islands. In the last few days of World War II, the Soviets began a massive invasion of Japanese territory, seizing North Korea and the Kuril Islands. When the war ended, the question of how to allocate Japan's former territory became a problematic topic. The 1945 Yalta Agreement between the US, the UK, and the USSR decided that the Soviet Union would receive the Kuril Islands if they went to war against Japan. However, just a few months later, the Potsdam Declaration laid out the terms of Japan's surrender to Allied forces. These terms granted Japan sovereignty over a number of relevant islands in the Kuril Island chain. Although most of the islands are not mentioned by name, Japan and the US have maintained that the phrase minor islands includes the disputed territory. Finally, a third document, the 1951 Treaty of San Francisco, created the most confusion. While the agreement was intended to be a final peace treaty between Japan and the Allies, the Kuril dispute stood in the way. The treaty stated that Japan would renounce its claim over the islands, but it did not grant the Soviet Union any control over them. As a result, the USSR refused to sign the document, which led to the US revoking Russia's rights to the islands. The Allies agreed that non-signatories to the peace treaty would not be granted any territorial claims. In 1956, the two countries signed a joint declaration, effectively postponing the question, along with any peace treaty agreements. Today, the islands are controlled by Russia and are generally acknowledged to be Russian territory. Most of the 20,000 inhabitants are of Slavic descent. In recent years, Russia has taken a particularly aggressive stance on territory control, leaving little room for Japan to ever reclaim the islands. Unfortunately, considering the scope of both countries' territorial disputes, it seems unlikely that either one will back down and make peace.
Liturgy became the official Russian writing also. This character shows without a shadow of doubt that the Russian language is derived from a real ancestor's mother tongue, namely the Greek language and alphabet via the Slavic speech and Cyrillic script. So Russia's root is Greek, right down to a very tongue. How amazingly accurate and exact Daniel had predicted that this little horn of Soviet Russia arises from the north, from one of the four horns or divisions of a he-goat, which symbolizes the Greek Empire. The four Russian characters, which looks like our English CCCP and which we so often wrongly read on Soviet missiles and rockets, is actually SSSR, short form for Soyuz, Sovietsky Socialist Chesky Republic, or the Union of Soviet Socialist Republic, short form USSR in Cyrillic. This is a photo of a bust showing the youthful face of Alexander the Great. Bible prophecies in Daniel chapter 8 verse 9 with bull's-eye accuracy predicted 2,600 years ago that the end-time Antichrist will arise as one of the four divisions of his empire. Another Alexander like him will come out of Russia to conquer the world. This newspaper clipping from the Sunday Mail dated May the 5th, 1991 shows how prophetically accurate or right on target the fulfillment of Daniel's prediction of the emergence of a stern-faced king or dictator the Bible called the Antichrist from the north in the end time soon tomorrow.
Прощай, края родные, звезда победы нам свети. До свидания, мама, не горюй, не грусти, пожелай нам доброго пути.
天安门广场是红旗的海洋，人们聚集在这里，参加中华人民共和国中央人民政府成立的盛大典礼。毛主席和6位副主席、政府委员、政协代表们登上了天安门。伟大的人民领袖和英明的政府领导者，你们将领导着人民永远向前，从胜利走向胜利。
毛泽东、朱德、刘少奇、周恩来、宋庆龄等党和国家领导人，随着他们的脚步，我们的民族也登上了一个崭新的高度。
中央人民政府秘书长林伯渠宣布典礼开始。毛泽东走进麦克风，以浓重的乡音、激昂的语调，庄严宣告：
中华人民共和国中央人民政府已于本日成立了。
这雄壮的声音通过无线电波传遍长城内外、大江南北，世世代代饱受苦难奴役的中国人民从此站起来了。
毛泽东亲手按动电钮，鲜艳的5星红旗在阳光下冉冉升起。
54门礼炮齐鸣28响。据说54门礼炮代表着当时统一的54个民族，28响标志着中国共产党领导人民英勇奋斗的28年。国际礼仪中没有这样的规定，这是根据中国的国情确定。
首先，这个今天的特殊的重大的节日里，我代表中国军人向俄罗斯全体人民，捎去我们中国人的问候，祝你们节日快乐。今天的活动很隆重，很庞大，我也很激动，能够参与俄罗斯的阅兵，我觉得身为一名军人，全世界一名军人都非常是值得伟大的。那么今天呢，我们中国的方阵，通过了红场，在我们陆军、海军、空军护卫着5星红旗，通过红场向全世界人民展示的是中国军人的精气神和英勇无畏的坚毅品质。那么这里面也说明啊，这个习总书记提倡的一带一路多么的正确，这里也体现了和平是多么重要。谢谢。
Военнослужащим Китайской Народной Республики и Монголии.
Ради них они прошли по морю от Кольского полуострова до Чукотки. 8 августа боевые корабли.
nation.
现在，请全体起立，
Please all rise
奏国际歌。
and for the international.
Friendships must be cultivated. To that end, China bestowed an honorary doctorate on Russia's president last month. At a press conference for the event, Vladimir Putin praised the two countries' relationship.
China is, by any measure, our strategic partner. Our biggest trade turnover is with China.
Last year, trade between the two countries rose 27% to $107 billion. Russia sells China raw materials, while China sends back machinery, transport, and consumer goods. To increase trade, the two are investing in new transport links, like this cross-border bridge over the Amur River. It's set to open for traffic next year.
We've long said that we need to build more infrastructure. Right now, two friendly countries with a long shared border can't trade normally because they lack the proper infrastructure.
Both presidents have promised to remedy that. They've met dozens of times in recent years, and the Kremlin says they have good personal chemistry as well. President Xi's visit to St. Petersburg has been in the works for a long time.
China and Russia support each other diplomatically against anti-globalization, protectionism, and unilateralism. This fully reflects the high level and special nature of the two countries' strategic partnership.
One thing unites China and Russia: their rivalry with the West. Russia has been hit hard by sanctions. China is living with the looming threat of a trade war with America. 30 bilateral agreements are set to come out of the summit, but the main aim here seems to be to send the West one message: we're just fine without you.
Both Russia and China are permanent members of the United Nations Security Council, where they often block resolutions from Western countries, especially relating to Syria and Venezuela. Another key part of the Russian-Chinese relationship is increasing military coordination. Russian TV news recently showed joint military exercises. 3,000 Chinese soldiers joined hundreds of thousands of Russian troops on maneuvers last year. The low Chinese numbers a sign that the Russians don't completely trust them yet.
We don't intend to become dependent on China. That's why we're developing relationships with Japan, Korea, the ASEAN countries, and India. Russia's Asia policy is more than just a China policy.
A sign that Russian foreign policy is based on pragmatism and can be easily adjusted depending on which way the wind blows.
DW's Emily Sherwin is following that visit in Moscow for us. I asked her earlier to tell us about the common interests that are drawing China and Russia closer together.
This is a marriage of convenience in some ways, but there is also a lot to it, a lot of basis to it. Russia and China have a lot in common when it comes to some of the main political issues in the international arena. At the moment, both support Maduro in Venezuela. Both are trying to salvage the Iran nuclear deal. Both also have a similar position on the denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula. They even have a joint roadmap that they have been working out, that they've been pushing on that process. They often vote together on resolutions in the Security Council, and economically as well. They've been developing ties, as we just saw in the piece. In recent years, Russia is China's main energy supplier. China is Russia's main trade partner. So even though we have been hearing a lot of rhetoric from both sides about deep friendship, that isn't just hot air. There is also a basis to it.
Okay, and we'll see what the basis comes up with today and in terms of possible trade deals. Emily Sherwin for us in Moscow. Thanks very much.
请全体起立。
Прошу всех встать.
Please all rise.
欢迎中华人民共和国主席
Let's welcome the President of PRC, Xi Jinping, and President
Председатель Китайской Народной
of
Республики
Russia,
Си
Vladimir
Цзиньпин
Putin.
и президент Российской Федерации Владимир Владимирович Путин.
奏唱中华人民共和国国歌。
Sing the national anthem of the People's Republic of China.
请习近平主席致辞，请各位嘉宾就座。
Now please give the floor to President Xi Jinping for the speech.
尊敬的普京总统
His Excellency President
各位朋友
Vladimir Putin, dear friends,
今天我们在这里举
today
行隆重的仪
we're
式，
here to have the
向中国人
ceremony
民的老朋友、好朋友
to give
俄罗斯联邦总统
the honor to our
授予
old
中华人
friends
民共和国
and partners, Vladimir
友谊勋章
Putin, with the Friendship Medal of People's Republic of China.
友谊勋章
The PRC Friendship Medal
是中国国家对外最高荣
is
誉
the
勋章，
highest honor of China,
授予在支持
and it awarded
中国现
to
代化建
foreigners
设
who have made outstanding
促进中
contributions
外交流
to
合作
China's socialist modernization
维护
drive,
世界
promoted exchange
和平
and
中做出
cooperation between
杰出
China and the
贡献
world,
的
and
外
help
国友人。
maintain world peace.
这次向普京总统
And this time,
授予友谊勋章，是中国
the medal
国
is
家
awarded to President
荣誉表
Putin,
彰制度建立以来
and this is the
首
first
次
ever
对外颁授。
Friendship Medal awarded. after the honor system established in China. President Putin is a great state of head of a great power. And he is also the person who make and propel the China and Russia ties to a higher level. Since 2000, Premier Putin paid 19 times to China and attend international activities. He is the old friend to the Chinese people and the most familiar to the Chinese president, the foreign president, and also my best friends. In 2001, President Putin, on behalf of Russia, signed the Good Neighbor Treaty of Friendship and Cooperation. This laid a solid foundation for the bilateral ties. Because of President Putin's promotion and a great attachment to bilateral ties, both countries have the capability to withstand the test of international vicissitudes, and we made all-round cooperation and coordination. The friendship is deepening, and the high-level bilateral ties deliver the benefit to the people of both sides. We can say this is the examples of the great powers can be coexistent and harmoniously together. And this is also made the great contribution to build a community with a shared future for mankind. Starting at the higher point of starting, I would like to hand in hand with President Putin to follow the spirit of mutual respect, fairness, and justice, cooperation, to lead our bilateral ties to a higher level with glory. This very heavy friendship medal symbolizes the respect of Chinese people to President Putin. This also shows China and Russia's long-term friendship. I would like to take this opportunity. I sincerely wish President Putin to achieve new results at your great positions, and wish China and Russia a great prosperity. People can enjoy happier life, and wish people at both countries to enjoy our last friendship. Thank you. Now please invite Mr. Wang Huning to read the Order of Friendship Medal approved by President Xi Jinping.
Председатель комиссии по делам государственных наград Ван Хунином.
受训令，根据中华人民共和国
According to the PRC law on national medals and honorary titles, the PRC Friendship Medal is to be presented to President Vladimir Putin of Russia Federation for his long-term and prominent work in strengthening friendship of the two sides, and also lifting the comprehensive strategic partnership of coordination from President Xi Jinping, Beijing, June 8, 2018.
В соответствии с законом о государственных наградах и государственных почетных званиях награждается президент Российской Федерации Владимир Владимирович Путин ордена Дружбы Китайской Народной Республики во знаменование многолетних усилий и выдающихся вклада президента Путина в развитие добрососедства и дружбы между Китаем и Россией и развитие китайско-российских отношений, всеобъемлющего партнерства и стратегического взаимодействия. Председатели Китайской Народной Республики Си Цзиньпин, Пекин, 8 июня 2018 года.
请全体起立。
Please all rise.
礼宾护送中华人民共和国友谊勋章入场。
Now the entrance of Friendship Medal, escorted by the Gardens.
I would
like to invite Chinese President Xi Jinping to present the Order of Friendship of People's Republic of China to President Vladimir Putin.
Республики.
奏俄罗斯联邦国歌。
Play national anthem of Russian Federation.
Российской Федерации.
请普京总统致答词。 请各位嘉宾就座。
given to President Putin and please be seated.
Прошу сесть.
уважаемый товарищ Си Цзиньпинь, дорогой друг,
His Excellency,
уважаемые коллеги,
Comrade
дамы
Xi
и господа,
Jinping,
друзья.
and dear friends,
Для меня
ladies
большая
and gentlemen,
честь быть удостоенным почетной государственной награды
to be
Китая.
awarded
орденом
the
Дружбы.
Friendship Medal of People's
Знаю,
Republic
что
of
орден
China
был учрежден
is my
совсем
great
недавно и
privilege.
сегодня вручается впервые.
I know this
Сердечно
is a
благодарю
new
китайских
honor
друзей
system,
за такой
and
особый
today is the
знак
first time
внимания.
to be given to the
Рассматриваю
foreigner.
это как признание и
And I
оценку
would like to appreciate
российских усилий
the
по
great honor
развитию
given to me,
всеобъемлющего
and thank you to
стратегического
all the
партнерства
friends
с
in
Китаем.
China. And also I believe this
Мы,
is because
я и мои коллеги,
the a
признательны
high
вам,
recognition
уважаемый
of my work
товарищ
and my
председатель,
colleagues in
за
promoting the bilateral
сегодняшнюю
ties to our
церемонию.
higher levels.
Мы видим не только,
I
что делается, но и как это
appreciate
происходит. Это тоже знак особого внимания
President
и
Xi
уважения,
Jinping for this
в основе
grand
которого,
ceremony.
безусловно, лежат наши общенациональные взаимные интересы,
We
интересы
really
наших народов
cherish
и, конечно,
and
наши с
revere
вами дружеские личные отношения.
the honor
Подчеркну, наша страна
and
искренне
the
дорожит
bilateral ties
добрососедством и дружбой с китайским
thriving because of
Мы гордимся
our
общими
personal
достижениями
relations and also
политики,
the emotional link
экономики,
between the two
науки,
countries.
культуре.
We cherish our good
достигнутый
neighborliness
высокий
and
уровень
friendship and
взаимодействия
cooperation,
на
and we also
международной арене.
achieve the good
И, конечно,
results
твердо
in different
уверены в
areas. We
успехе
feel so
всех
proud of
наших
that.
начинаний.
Both countries
Хотел
have
бы
a very
еще раз
high quality
поблагодарить за столь
cooperation
почетную
in
награду.
international stage. Looking to the
Рассчитываю
future,
на
I believe we
дальнейшую
have more to be
совместную
achieved.
работу
I'd really
по
like to
углублению
take this opportunity to
российско-китайского
appreciate
стратегического
the
взаимодействия
awarding this honor to
во
me,
имя
and let's
процветания
hand in
и
hand to
благополучия
strengthen our
народов
comprehensive
Российской
strategic partnership
Федерации
of
и
coordination.
Китайской Народной
And I believe there will be a bright future and a prosperity ahead of us. Thank you.
"中华人民共和国友谊勋章颁授仪式到此结束。
This come to the end
谢谢习近
of
平主席，
the PRC
谢谢普京总
Friendship
统，
Medal
谢谢各位嘉
awarding
宾。
ceremony, and
Завершается
thank you all for
церемония
coming.
награждения орден Дружбы. Спасибо, президент Си Цзиньпин, спасибо, президент Путин, спасибо всем гостям.
All right, that was the award ceremony in the Golden Hall at the Great Hall of the People, where President Xi awarded Russian President Vladimir Putin the Friendship Medal. Let me bring in my guests, Ambassador Liu and Professor Tang here. Quite a ceremonial scene we're seeing there, the long walk on the red carpet, the Golden Hall, the military band, the honor guards. What's your reaction after seeing all that, the ceremony, everything?
Well, the first thing that struck me most is the solemn atmosphere, which is punctuated, as you rightly put it, by the ceremonies of one kind after the other. I can see from the ceremony, we could see very much clearly that it is a landmark event to cement the friendship and comradeship between the two leaders. This is also a new launching pad for the bilateral relations because both Russia and China have just concluded the political cycle, after which the two leaders will be staying in power for a lengthy period of time. And this would allow the two leaders to make the political decisions to push forward the bilateral relations. This would allow the two leaders to plan the concrete measures to promote the international cooperation, international peace. We have to take this into consideration. Out of the P5 at the United Nations, when some major players are ganging together to destroy the peace, the two leaders are standing together to promote the peace. This is the strike contrast to the international community. I'm sure the international community is watching very carefully to see the differences of the leaders of different groups or different categories, and so to speak.
President Xi calling President Putin his best friend in his speech today. And President Putin also said the two countries have some kind of emotional links. He has earlier also said President Xi is one of the world leaders, is the only world leaders that he can celebrate his birthday with. How do you look at the so-called bromance, as some put it?
We have one saying: friendship is not only starting from the politics. The personal relationship is what matters most in promoting the bilateral relations between the leaders, between the two governments, and between the two peoples. In this regard, I heard President Xi Jinping said more than one time in public that he and President Putin enjoy the vodka and Malta and whatever. This is a gesture. And secondly, they had quite something in common. They about the same age. They took the leadership when both countries at the crossroad with a different attitude, and when they outreach to each other when the two countries are also at the crossroad, and they came together and embraced each other, not to form up a new alliance against anybody, but to form the kind of community of shared destinies, and so to speak. So these are the things which have been demonstrated very clearly to the international community, that the two leaders, by presenting the state honor by President Xi Jinping to President Putin, is the symbol to tell the international community when countries are working together for peace, the world will watch and listen. When something else happens, the international community would also watch.
Watch closely the Red Dragon of Communist China, close friendship ties with Russia, or the Red Beast, or ex-USSR.